Good evening and welcome to the Charlton Board of Selectmen's meeting for May 13th, 2014. I'll ask that we begin with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Although we did have a workshop meeting last Tuesday evening, for many of you at home, this will be your first time with our new members on the board, so we'd like to officially welcome Mrs. Cooper and Mr. McGrath to the board, and congratulations on your win, and I can say for everyone else, we look forward with working with you over the next few years.
Thank you. Two tough races.
Yeah, they were tough ones. Our agenda for this evening consists of review of the minutes of the Selectmen's regular meeting of April 15th, review of the special Selectmen's meeting minutes of April 22nd, review of the minutes of our regular meeting of April 29th, and review of the minutes of our special Selectmen's meeting of May 6th, 2014. That will be followed by community relations, announcements, and open forum. We're going to bump up and put our student select person report in right after that. Under appointments and resignations, we have one appointment for per diem dispatcher. We have a 7 o'clock scheduled hearing for Ye Old Commons live entertainment license. This is a continuation of a hearing we had our last regular meeting. We have 3 items under new business: a site plan application for LFB USA Incorporated, an Arbor Day proclamation, and request for a common victual license for Douglas Donuts LLC, DBA, doing business as Dunkin' Donuts. We have 2 items under old business, replacing trees on the town common, and a discussion of the annual town meeting, the warrant, motions, and budgets. That'll be followed by any committee reports and Board of Selectmen policy review, then the town administrator's report, and at that point, we'll have any other business that was unknown at the time of posting. And just to remember, our annual town meeting is this coming Monday, May 19th, 2014. We ask that everyone please come out and participate in your town's government. Our regular next Selectmen's meeting will be on May 27th. We will be going into executive session this evening, and we'll come out of executive session solely for the purpose of adjournment. I would entertain the board's wishes with regards to the minutes of the regular Selectmen's meeting of April 15th.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Zafirovich?
Move we accept the April 15th Selectmen meeting minutes.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Cindy and I can't vote on it.
Actually, you can second though.
Okay, I'll second.
Great, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
That being the case, that we will hold on to these minutes for our next meeting, as we don't have a quorum to make a ruling on them.
I don't think we can make a quorum now. I think me and you and the person's only selectmen.
That's why I say we'll hold on until next time. So
If you
we're
have
not going to have a
two
quorum
yes.
either way.
No, if you have a
Yeah,
two
well, we
yes
can
and
go in
three
it if we have- yep.
abstentions, you still have.
If we have 3
passes.
abstentions and 2 yes. So again, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Abstention?
Abstain.
Three.
Chair votes aye. Motions carries.
Mr. Chair.
This is getting harder by the day. Mr. Zafirovich?
I move that we accept our April 22nd meeting minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on that motion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Zafirovich?
Move we accept the April 29th meeting minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Abstention?
Abstain?
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
What was the votes on that one? 2, 3?
We had 3 aye and 3 aye and 2 abstentions.
That was 3 abstentions. That wasn't there.
Okay, 2 ayes and 3 abstentions.
And Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the May 6th meeting minutes.
Second.
Now we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on this motion?
Catching up.
None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? Chair votes aye. We have a unanimous vote and it carries. Thank you. We have a few items under announcements. Again, the annual town meeting will be held on Monday, May 19th, 7 p.m. at the Charlton Middle School. And again, we strongly encourage everyone, please come out and participate in your town government. A lot is decided besides the town budget. There's a lot of issues to decide. So please come out May 19th, 2014, Charlton Middle School at 7 p.m. The Boston Post Cane Committee is in search of a new cane recipient. Please visit www.townofcharlton.net for more info. The town hall will be closed on Monday, May 26th, in observance of Memorial Day. The Charlton Public Library will be closed as well. We have a family fishing day, Saturday, June 7th, from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. at Buffinville Lake Park, and that's rain or shine. And the library will also be closed on Thursday, May 29th, and Saturday, May 31st, so that the staff may attend a conference. Do you have any other announcements? Do we have anyone here for open forum? Mr. Sage.
Stephen Sage, Lincoln Point Road, Charlton. It was kind of interesting that actually on your agenda today there's also an Arbor Day proclamation and the replacement of the town trees on town common. I've got a problem with the fact that the trees and bushes are being way over mulched by who's ever taking care of the town properties. I've given you all a sheet from the Rutgers Cooperative Research Extension. It's a fact sheet on problems with over mulching trees and shrubs. Basically, by piling as much mulch as being put on the trees, there's oxygen starvation, which is the suffocation of tree roots, is the most common cause of trees and shrubs death from overmulching. This is especially common in the spring and fall, which are critical periods for root growth, and during other wet periods. Overmulching also causes the inner bark death of the above ground root flares. The inner bark death comes from the piles of mulch placed directly against the stems or trunks of trees and shrubs. It also promotes disease. Most fungal and bacterial diseases require moisture to spread and reproduce. Trunk disease gains a foothold into the moist, decaying bark tissue under the mulch. This is just a very short synopsis of this two-page article. It does say that the standard mulch recommendations are to mulch may thus be one of the best or one of the worst things you can do for your plants. Mulch depth should standardly not exceed 3 inches. However, on poorly drained soils, mulch depths should not exceed 2 inches, especially for shallow-rooted plants. Wet soils may not need any mulch. Coarser textured mulches can be placed a bit deeper due to better oxygen diffusion in the soil. Finer textured mulch, such as double shredded mulch, may need only a 1 or 2 inch layer. One other article I read talked about having the mulch nowhere near the base of trees and shrubs, anywhere from 6 to 8 inches depending upon the tree. And if you go outside and just look at your bush and the new tree that's out there, they are going to be suffering a very slow, torturous death. I would request that somebody communicate. 2 years ago I tried to communicate this, and it did not seem to get to the people that are mulching. I have taken care of the problem to some degree over at the library as the library trustee, but there's more work that I need to do over there. I would hate to see us incur additional expenses as we knock off our trees. If you want to see a good example of trees dying, just go up to the Toyota dealer on Route 20 in Auburn, and you can see most of their trees are way over mulched, and most of them are completely dead.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
I will be glad to have a conversation with John Simons.
Perfect. Thank you. Do you have anyone else here for open forum? Mr. Cooper?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Peter Cooper Jr., Town Moderator. First of all, I'd like to reiterate your announcement to please, I'd like all the voters of the town to come out to town meeting on Monday evening. It's a great time, it really is. It might not sound like it, calling a meeting, but it's everyone gets to come together, discuss all the important issues about our community, and decide what to do about them. So I'd love for everybody to come out on Monday evening at 7 o'clock at the middle school. The second thing I'd like to just make sure the community is aware of is we have 2 openings on the Finance Committee which makes the budget recommendations to town meeting. That is appointed by the moderator, and so if anybody is interested in helping serve the town in that way, to help recommend the budgets and spending, capital expenses, all those things for the town, please contact me.
How long are those appointments for, Mr. Cooper?
It's generally for a 3-year term, although we also have an alternate position, which would be a 1-year term.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Cooper?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
If I
Ms.
may,
Graver?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to applaud Mr. Cooper's, he's put together a fact sheet for town meeting. We're gonna be placing that in the booklet for the first time this year. And explain some of the things that people will hear, some of the terminology and some of what's gonna happen, so.
Sometimes there's some jargon that, the word moving the question means something to us, and it's just this completely bizarre phrase if you haven't heard it before. So just trying to explain those kinds of things.
So you did a nice job with it.
Great, we appreciate that effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Do we have anyone else here for open forum? Mr. Cooper?
Hi, Peter Cooper Senior, 190 Berry Corner Road. I'd like to talk about the 4-day work week that the Finance Committee recommended. First of all, I'd like to say, we recommend stuff, and then it goes to the Select Board. But we asked Robin, our town administrator, to do a lot of things for us, set up meetings and stuff like that. And unfortunately, one thing that happens with this is she ends up taking a lot of heat. And I just feel bad on that since it's us. And in fact, on the 4-day week, I'm the one that brought it up. So if you want to have some heat, throw it my way. And I did it for 2 reasons. One was to save money on oil, which would mean that maybe we don't lay somebody off, because that's where the budget is. And secondly, and I think almost just as important, is we're not asking anybody to cut their hours back. You just make up the hours during the week. And so the town hall would be open longer. Right now, it closes at 3:30. If you work, there's no way you can get here except for 1 day a week. And if you've got business, sometimes it takes more than that to get here. And so that's another big thing. I do have some information from the town of Brookfield, if I may
Matt, please.
bring this up. This is, and I don't like to make decisions on emotions. I like to make them on facts. And so when we started this, we didn't have really any facts about what we would save and what we wouldn't. And the town of Brookfield did this, and our town hall is certainly different than theirs. I think it's actually in better shape, the windows, and we've already done some things that they did at that time. But you can see the top part, and this is number of gallons. So it's not, you can't really use price, because price has gone from $2 to over $4. So you're not gonna get an accurate picture on that. On the top part, it's the number of gallons. So you can see 06, 07 was a little over 5,000 gallons. You know, 08 was 4,145, and then and that's when the next year, in 09, is when they went to eliminating Saturdays. In fact, they did it more than what we were gonna probably propose. They only did it 1 day a week, one night a week that the town hall could be open during the Monday to Thursday. I don't think we can do that because we have too many meetings. But as you can see, it dropped the number of gallons down to 2,240. In 2010, 2,146. So it basically almost cut it in half, the oil. And same with electricity. It was like 1,700. I don't know what happened in '08. They must have left something on because it was way up to 3,500. But then it was 1,700. So I would say 17 is around their average. And then that dropped also in half, and that's a dollar amount. So would we say 50%? I don't think so, because we've already done some things like program thermostats and, you know, the windows and automatic light shut off. So I think we could probably say 30%. I think so. But only by doing it will we know. And on the back is just some of the things that they did, which you can read, and just, you know, they brought the heat down to 55. And I think it should also be, and given this a lot of thought, each building should be looked at separately, the use of the building, the hours that it's open, and what we think we would save over that. And like the library, because they get money from the state, if they close for 4 days, they're gonna lose some money. So, you know, I would recommend that they're open 5 days. But right now, the way it's run is probably the worst way, because they're closed Friday, open Saturday, and then close Sunday, and then, you know, then open on Monday. So it would be much better if you could close 2 days in a row, say like Sunday and Monday, and just swap those 2 days. So then you could cool it down, you know, in the summer and also in the winter. So I just wanted to bring that and bring some facts to the selectmen on that issue. And you can take it whichever way you're going, but this is only my first year on the finance committee, but before I got on, I spent a year going to every finance committee that they had, because it was something I wanted to do. And this is going to be a very, very tough, and you've said it yourself, that you know, we about pulled all the things that we can think of away, and now we got to think a little out of the box. And is it going to be some inconvenience, and is it going to be some pain? But that's where we're at. We can't manufacture money. We can't print it. We have to take the dollars that come into the town and use them in the wisest way that we can. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Cooper? It's pretty black and white. We appreciate the research that you did on this, and we appreciate you bringing that forward and
Okay.
Hopefully clearing it up for some people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Do we have any other Mr. Coopers that would like to come up and speak? Mr. Sage?
Would you rather wait till we get to the budget part to talk about budget?
I would rather wait till we get to the budget part to talk about budget if we could, rather than get that fragmented. Do we have anyone else here for an open forum on a non-budget related issue? Nope, then we'll move on. We're going to bump out of order a little bit now. We're going to have our student select persons report, as Ms. Sprague has those pesky MCAS exams tomorrow, and go figure wants to study for them. So, Ms. Sprague?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Progress reports for quarter 4 were distributed last Friday, May 9th. Math MCAS was held today and will continue tomorrow for all grade 10 students. The senior banquet will be held this Wednesday, May 14th at Shepherd Hill. Varsity softball game against Millbury will be held at Shepherd Hill High School at 3:30 on Wednesday. And also on Wednesday there will be a 4 p.m. freshman baseball game versus Neshoba Regional at Shepherd Hill. Shepherd Hill Prom will be held Saturday, May 17th at the DCU Center in Worcester. Monday, May 19th, Shepherd Hill Senior Barbecue will be held. Senior final exams will be taking place Monday, May 19th through Friday, May 23rd. Park testing will be held at Shepherd Hill on Wednesday the 21st and Thursday, May 22nd. Friday, May 23rd will be Shepherd Hill's first ever Broadway Spectacular. Tickets are available at shepherdhillchorus.com.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Sprague? Getting a busy season up there, huh? Good, well, thank you for your report, and good luck with your MCAS.
Thank you.
We have one item under appointments and resignations, and that is for a per diem, an appointment for a per diem dispatcher. And I'll read this memo from Ms. Craver. Attached, you will find a letter from Chief Purvier requesting to add one additional per diem dispatcher to cover certain shifts on various days. In an effort to avoid the unnecessary payment of overtime, an immediate need exists to add the requested position. In reviewing the Charlton Police Department's current pool of per diem dispatcher applicants, Chief Purvier interviewed and would recommend the appointment of Brian J. Gonzalez of 109 Sunderland Road, Worcester, Mass. A complete background check and reference check was conducted and revealed that Mr. Gonzalez has a clean record and a solid background and should be considered for the per diem dispatcher position for the Charlton Police Department. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Mr. Gonzalez is here. We keep finding ourselves where, with per diems, it ebbs and flows their availability. And Mr. Gonzalez, I spoke to him in regards to those shifts. A lot of them are those overnight shifts that are tough to fill in weekends, and he's amenable to doing those shifts. Mr. Gonzalez has a Bachelor of Science degree from Holy Cross College, in addition to his certifications. He's a very articulate, very bright young man, and he'd be great if your board approves him for the Charlton Police Department.
Thank you.
Chair.
Mr. Singer?
I move that we appoint Brian J. Gonzalez per diem dispatcher for the town of Charlton.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously.
This is Mr. Gonzalez.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Congratulations. Well, very much. Good luck with it. We are just about at 7 o'clock, within a minute or two, so we will go to our 7 o'clock appointment, which is a public hearing for Ye Olde Commons live entertainment license. And this is a continuation from the hearing we began on April 29th. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. At the board's last meeting, the public hearing for Ye Olde Commons live entertainment license was opened. There was a lengthy discussion regarding the stipulations for this license, as well as comments from abutters. The board voted to have two residents abutting this property, Mr. Henning and one of the representatives from Ye Olde Commons, police, fire, and a member of the selectmen, which you volunteered, Mr. Chair, to sit down and address some of the issues that aren't addressed yet, and to bring that information back to the board. The meeting was held, and the majority agreed to limit from 1,200 to 600 capacity, that the pole-mounted floodlights would be turned off when the entertainment ended. Mr. Hemme would place no trespassing signs on his neighbor's fence to help prevent attendees from going into her yard, and a thorough inspection will be made of the boundaries and all litter picked up. It was identified that the only weekend late-night outside entertainment that was planned was for the 4th of July weekend. The group agreed to meet after that weekend and see if there needs to be any adjustments, and they can bring that back to the board. The group is scheduled for a meeting for Tuesday, July 8th at 5:30 at the site.
Thank you. And we will declare the hearing open, the continuation of the hearing open at 7 p.m. And just one point that I will make is, well, first thing, I want to thank everyone who participated in the discussion. I thought it was a good discussion. It was an open and candid discussion. There was some disagreement. The license is written to have live entertainment stop at outside at 11 o'clock and indoors at 1 o'clock. There was discussion, there were residents that felt very strongly that they would like to see those hours be either 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock or 10:30 and 12:30. So I can't say we had full agreement on that. My hope is that one of the things that was talked about doing was requiring the sound system to be moved and angled at a certain position so it's playing into trees and away from the neighbors. So the hope is, with that being done, that's going to address a lot of the concern of neighbors being bothered by the sound in their homes. As Ms. Craver stated, we also are going to have a meeting at the site the Tuesday right after the 4th of July, while everything is still fresh in everyone's mind, and we can talk about how that worked and go forward from there. So do we have,
If you'd like, we can read the stipulations.
do you have the newest draft of that? Or do I have the newest draft of that as well? Give me 1 second, I'll read the new list of stipulations. There we go, thank you. Okay, and I'm going to read this right off the license itself. If voted by this board, if this license is granted, it is in conformity with the statutes, ordinances, and the following requirements. All outside amplified entertainment must end and pole-mounted floodlights must be shut off by 11 p.m. All inside entertainment must end by 1 a.m. All sound levels should be maintained as not to constitute a disturbance of the peace. Maximum of 600 persons on site at any one time. Maximum of 100 tents on site. Maximum parking for cars shall not exceed 300 on the property. No on-street parking. If event disrupts street traffic, establishment must hire police detail. Establishment will maintain sufficient bathroom and bathing facilities in accordance with health code requirements. Police details, if needed, will be paid 30 days in advance of the event by certified bank check or money order. Serving of alcoholic beverages will require a separate license issued by the Charlton Board of Selectmen. Crowd control manager, as applicable under Central Mass Regulations 521. Venue shall contact chief of fire and police with estimated crowd size and type of event and entertainment in advance, and the chiefs will recommend any detail requirements. Temporary signage is required for each event, directing attendees to Ye Olde Commons. And the last one is amplified audio must be set up facing towards Mass Pike and away from general neighborhood. Now, in addition to this, Mr. Henning has also agreed one of the issues was the neighbor who's right next door had cars pulling into park where the headlights were flashing right into her windows of her house. Also, when cars were pulling in, that same thing would happen. So what Mr. Henning has agreed to, that any cars that park in that area will be backed in, so the headlights won't be flashing into the neighbor's house. And also, there is a U-shaped access. So they will be one way. So the entrance will be towards the house, and then the cars will turn left. So as they turn, they're pointing their headlights away from the neighbors' houses to address that concern as well. Mr. Henning also agreed that he would police the area for trash pickup and litter following every event. And I would open this up. We have the letters. This is a continuation of the meeting that we had 2 weeks ago. We have those letters that we addressed at that time. Those are still on file. I would ask if anyone from the audience would like to come up and speak on this. I would ask if any of the, Chief?
The one thing I heard was possibly a typo on the 527, or did you say 521?
I'm sorry, I said 521 CMR.
Or it's just supposed to be 527 CMR for this crowd manager? Okay, just so we can just clarify that so it's correct in the contract.
We'll make that correction. Thanks, Chief. Ms. Craver, do we receive any additional letters or comments?
Not that I'm aware of, sir.
Okay, and I just would acknowledge that I did receive an email from Ms. Remiak after our meeting, and I spoke with her today regarding the concerns that she had. Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Cooper?
I'm curious about the tents. Those are vendor tents, is that correct?
Mr. Henning, would you come up, please, sir?
Good evening. The tents in question would be tents of people that are either camping out for the weekend or vendor tents that are selling merchandise at the Renaissance Festival. The vendors often also have their own personal tents for sleeping over, as do entertainers. But there are also attendees who can stay, just like they do in the cabins.
Do you have any other questions from the board? And I will offer again one last chance if anyone in the audience would like to ask a question or comment. Then there being none, I will entertain a motion to close the hearing. Mr. Zafirovich?
Motion to close the hearing?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? None appearing, then the hearing is closed. Then our next order of business will be to act on the license application.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Singer?
I move to approve the license with the agreed-upon terms
As amended with the CMR.
as amended with CMR 527.
Thank you.
Second.
That's a second. We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion relative to the motion?
Did we have to vote on closing the meeting for the,
Hearing?
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. The hearing is closed at 7:05 PM. Thank you. Now we have a motion and a second to act on the license request. Are there comments regarding that motion? Questions, comments? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And again, I'll state to anyone interested, we will be meeting 5:30 PM on Tuesday, the 8th of July, after the next event on the site to go through and talk to the neighbors and see how it went and take things from there. So thank you all. Thanks for your concern on this, and thank you for coming forward. We are going to move on to new business. The first item under new business is a site plan application from LFB USA Incorporated. Ms. Craver?
So much with the leftover.
There's a lot of paperwork for the old
comments.
Stretches on and on.
definitely a lot less contentious than last meeting.
Attached, please find a copy of a site plan application submitted to the planning board by Whitman and Brigham Associates on behalf of LFB USA Incorporated for approval to construct a 13,400 square foot biotech building with an accompanying 33-space parking lot, driveway, and infrastructure on property located easterly off of Route 31, New Spencer Road. Assessors map 3, block 6, parcels 1 and 1.3 and 1.2. This property is zoned agricultural. The board is asked to review the site plan and provide any comments that you may have, if any, to the planning board no later than Thursday, May 15th.
Thank you. The site plan review, the documents have been in the selectman's office, and they're currently up here if anyone has any questions, wants to look at them at all. Would anyone like to make any comments to the planning board regarding this site plan review? Then none appearing, I'll ask Ms. Craver if you just let planning board know that we have no comments on it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Next up, we have an Arbor Day proclamation. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. It's that time of year again when the planning board will be applying to the Massachusetts Urban and Community Forest Program for the annual Tree City USA designation, which is an award through the Mass Relief Grant Program Tree Grant Installation. There are 4 requirements needed when earning the Tree City USA recognition each year, which are a tree board or department, a tree care ordinance, a community forestry program with an annual budget of at least $2 per capita, and an Arbor Day observance and proclamation. As the planning board submits this yearly, the request to proclaim Arbor Day must be met. A proclamation is permanent, but as this grant requests, it must be observed every year. The particular day for this proclamation is not important, as it is just significant to honor the concept with an honoring proclamation. The planning board will appreciate the board's consideration of this request, as you have in the past. Should the board approve this request, an Arbor Day proclamation has been prepared and is in your sign folder. We will just need you to add the date the board declares as the Arbor Day observant.
Thank you. Do you have any thoughts, recommendations as to a day, particular day that would work? Should we just pick a day?
Sounds good.
Just to grab some, where are we now, 13th? What if we were to proclaim Sunday, May 25th? Any objection to that?
So moved.
We have a motion to proclaim May 25th, Sunday, as Charlton's Arbor Day.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there a discussion? None appearing, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Is this a proclamation that should be read now, or is that not necessary?
It's up to the board.
We have a good agenda for tonight, so if there's no objection to the board, the proclamation is in Mr. Zafirovich's capable hands right now, so it'll be available for viewing in the office if anyone would like to see it. Our last item under new business is we have a request for a common victualler license for Douglas Donuts LLC, doing business as Dunkin' Donuts. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir, attached is a request for a common vicular license, which is coffee and food from Douglas Donuts LLC, doing business as Dunkin' Donuts. Carol Youssef, manager at 52 North Main Street in Charlton. They have completed all the necessary paperwork needed, and I would recommend the board approve the license as requested.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Singer?
I move that we approve the request.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. You never hurt with another Dunkin' Donuts.
Close by.
Close by, exactly. We at this point move on to old business. And the first item under new business is replacing the trees on the town common. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir, at the board's last meeting, discussion came up about replacing the 2 trees that were taken down on the town common. It was recommended to make this an item on tonight's agenda to provide residents a chance to give their thoughts on how they would like to see the common replanted. We have not received any feedback as of writing this memo, but how does the board wish to proceed? I did have a conversation also with Todd Gerard, who has taken the table already, and we've been talking about the different types of trees and has made a recommendation already. What you also, just before we start, because he's gonna wanna make sure that you have these that he will refer to. Does everyone have a copy of the map that he's provided? Okay.
So I guess one of the questions, before I start, I'm Todd Gerard, Conservation Agent. I guess one of the questions we've had before us is the 2 blue spruce that we removed, what would we like to do with those trees? Those blue spruce trees were about 100 years old. I've tried to research to figure out why did they choose two blue spruce on Charlton Common in 1914. Can't find any documentation on it. However, they must have had a pretty good idea. So I'm recommending that instead of reinventing the wheel, we remove and replace with the same exact tree, just smaller. Looked up some costs. Those trees are anywhere between about $400 to $600 a piece. This could be something that we could manicure and keep as a seasonal tree. Both of them could be utilized as a seasonal tree to incorporate our whole seasonal display that we do on the common. That's my recommendation.
Would your recommendation be placement as they were previously?
Pretty much in the same spots. They accent the front elevation of the building very well. It kind of brackets up the common to segment it into about thirds. We'd have the north third, the middle third, and the south third. Those 2 trees would accent the library front facade with the town hall's front, and it just really matches up, I think, the whole area pretty good.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Gerard?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Singer?
Is there an opportunity to add other trees to the common, or just those 2?
Right now, I've only looked at those 2 trees. One of the original intents of the common was to have common grazing ground. And now we're kind of changing our common into making it into a little bit of a forest. So I don't know if the town would want to continue with the original idea of the common being a common grazing ground or a new common area with more trees and things like this.
Yeah,
But I would think we'd want to inventory what we have to see
Gotcha.
where they are, how old they are, what their growth is, and what would work in the future with, new species or something.
Gotcha. Yeah, the reason I asked was, not to make it a forest to get, in front of Town Hall, but there is a lot of space out there, and I thought another tree that might be nice in front of the Town Hall on Main Street would be some of those Japanese cherry blossoms. Every spring, they blossom, and you get the white and the pink all over. That would be really nice to have a couple of those if there was room for them to go on the common.
So we look like Washington.
Well, they're not just Washington, they're also in Philadelphia, there are a lot of other places.
Ms. Craven?
Thank you. There has also been discussion, and Todd and I had talked about whether or not to recommend replacing the trees as they are. And one of the things he did point out to me was that is greenery throughout the winter, and the other trees do lose their green. So, but one of the other considerations was to only plant one evergreen and then to replace the other tree. At some point, and we've spoken with the family, we have a tree that's on the side of the house that is a memorial, and the family has, and I'm speaking anonymously, but Mrs. Cooper, I'm stands the tree, as it is, was donated in memory of one of her children. To move that, at some point, our plan is to take the parking lot and driveway around the full building. And if we do that, we would be replacing that tree. So one of the things that we were thinking about also is to move a tree, probably not that one, but another tree in memory, which could be something like the blossoming tree that you're talking about. The other thing that I've heard from residents has been, do we need more shade trees? So I just kind of put all these out because those are considerations. So you have choices to replace the trees as they were and maybe make an adjustment for centering, replace a evergreen and another type of tree, or replace the two trees and then still add another tree. But we would be adding another tree.
Thank you. Chief?
I'm in line, through the chair, I'm in line with Mr. Gerard. I think that there was, I don't know what the mindset was back then, but anytime that I've come through Charlton over the years, I always remember the common with those two big trees, those spruces there. So the idea, it's kind of a little bit of Charlton's identity. I also respect that there needs to be a spot at some point when you redesign the side of the north side of the town hall for the Cooper tree. I would work, with Mr. Gerard. I would really like to see the two spruces there in perpetuity. Obviously, those that know, when Christmas comes, that I'm involved on the common as far as the decoration of those trees. And one of the discussions over the years has been, because of the lightning strike to the one on the north side and some other, where the trees weren't maintained over the year, they were becoming unsightly and they were becoming unhealthy. And so in discussion, even prior to some the funds that became available that brought those trees down, was the fact that that in my mind that they were going to be replaced, and to regrow and to be here again. It just, obviously, your board has the final say in that. I just my 2 cents. But please, if you don't put the two, please at least put the one.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Singer?
Just for clarification, I thought I was clear, but just for clarification, my suggestion for the Japanese cherry blossoms was not instead of the blue spruces, but was in addition to.
And I just throw in that after 8 years of doing this, I'm no closer to being able to predict what issues people take seriously than I was 8 years ago. You just never know what issue people are going to come forward with, and I have heard more about the trees and been asked more about the trees than I have in most other issues. And with what I've heard from residents, I would absolutely support replacing the two blue spruce with two more blue spruce.
In the same spots?
In the same spots. I think we have a large community in this town that, as the chief said, grew up with those trees there. And it's part of a lot of people's minds, some of the character of the center of this town. So I would, if in fact they were replaced due to damage and disease and that, then I think out of respect to the history of the town, that we just want to replace them with what was there and try to keep them, maintain them as healthy as we can. And with the possibility of adding something further down the line. So I would entertain a motion from the board.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Singer?
I would move to replace the two blue spruces with two new blue spruces, I believe in the same location as the old blue spruces.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Mrs. Zafirovich?
When do you place the trees? I think it might be nice for the town to have some sort of Charlton Historical Day. We invite the Historical Commission to give us some sort of presentation, have some sort of ceremony celebrating maybe another 100 years for these trees.
Good thought. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? None appearing, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gerard, for your work on that.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Chair?
Thanks,
Mr.
Todd.
Singer?
Can I make a request that we ask Ms. Craver to work with Mr. Gerard to just actually investigate? I don't want it to be one of those things that maybe down the road and then 50 years from now, nothing ever happened because no one looked into it. But to have Ms. Craver maybe work with Mr. Gerard to investigate now if there's the possibility to maybe get some of those cherry blossoms out there that every spring, it's a nice way to welcome spring when they start to blossom. And that could also be, in addition to the blue spruces,
A new
something
tradition.
for Charlton, where every spring, the people from Charlton look forward to seeing those trees blossom and all the white and pink, petals everywhere. Oh, in the common. Wherever you want to put them, Todd.
I'm designing.
Wherever looks good.
I usually go with big design and then we start hacking.
There you go.
So go big.
Okay, and then I'll give you guys the hatchet.
There you go.
Perfect.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank you,
night.
Todd. Next up under old business is the annual town meeting, which is again this Monday, and we have to go through our town meeting warrant with the motions and also the budget. Ms. Craver, you want to get us started down this path, please?
So you have two issues tonight to take a look at with annual town meeting coming up. One is the warrant, one is the budget. Regarding the warrant, please find the draft warrant with motions for your review in your Dropbox. You have reviewed and approved to recommend some of the motions. Please see the draft motions, and we should go through them and vote your pleasure, as we will need to start printing the town meeting booklets this week after the Finance Committee. As you know, town meeting is next Monday. So, is it the board's pleasure to go through the warrant first and then go through the budget?
Please.
Does everyone have their warrant up? Great. So I think that you've already done, voted to approve up to 9. So you did 1 through 8. Right now, you
Correct.
have Article 9, appropriation of funds for unpaid bills of a prior fiscal year. The Finance Committee has approved this. The amount is $262.50. The money would come from general insurance, and it is to Neopost USA, and it is for rental postage payment that was outstanding from last year. We are still negotiating with them. At this point, we don't believe that we are owed that, but we would like to get it on to the town meeting. And if we don't need to pay it, we won't, but we should at least appropriate it at this point.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Zafirovich.
Move that we approve the motion for Article 9.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion, questions, comments? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Interdepartmental transfers for this year, FY14, Article 10. And you have in front of you, would you like me to read them, or?
Please, if you would.
Okay. So you have 25,000 from general insurance to the reserve fund. This is the first year that the reserve fund has actually had more requests from budgets than they've had money, which is not a good trend. $650 from the Dudley Charlton assessment to treasurer banking services, $400 from the Dudley Charlton assessment for the treasurer expense, $15,030 from the assessment to the treasurer's salary sick time buyback, $25,000 from the assessment to municipal energy utilities, $25,000 from the assessment to municipal gas and diesel, $5,000 from the assessment for police expense, $3,600 from the assessment to veterans benefits, $4,000 from the assessment for stormwater CIC grant match, and $3,500 from the health insurance for fire department, $35,000. From the health insurance to the fire department wages, we settled that contract. Finance Committee has approved this motion.
Mrs. Zafirovich?
Ms. Craver, for the municipal energy utilities and the gas and diesel,
Yes, sir.
are you confident that'll be enough to see us through the end of the fiscal year?
Yes, sir.
Have there been any other questions?
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Zafirovich?
I move that we approve the motion for Article 10.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None appearing, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Article 11,
Article 11 is the classification plan, and I believe at your last meeting, you had a meeting with staff, and you are going to move to pass over. You have two different motions there. One was if you had conversations regarding splitting the planning director and EDC. You had a joint meeting with EDC 2 days ago, I believe. And I believe that the
Yesterday.
board, they have made a request for you to go in a different direction. And you will see that in the budget, which has changed from splitting the EDC and planning director to reducing the EDC planning director 4 hours. So you'll see that reflected in the budget. So at this time, I would recommend that, given the discussion and the board's promise to the staff that you'll take the time to look at the classification plan, that you vote to approve the motion that says, I move that Article 11 be passed over indefinitely.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer?
I move that article, to support the motion, I move that Article 11 be passed over indefinitely.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions, comments? None appearing, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Article 12 is the budget, and I do not have the numbers to come from stabilization at this time or to be raised by taxation, as we do not have a final number. The Finance Committee will be meeting on that. Would you like to go to the budget now, or would you like to finish the motions and then come back to the
What I
budget?
would like to do, if we could, is finish the motions, and then we'll come back. We'll be on the budget for a while, so let's wrap up the rest if we can, then we can spend some time on the budget.
Article 13 is the Water Department budget. This is an enterprise budget, and the Finance Committee approves this motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Zafirovich?
I move that we approve the motion for Article 13.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the Article 14 is the Sewer Department budget, which is also an enterprise fund, and the Finance Committee has approved this motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Zafirovich?
I move that we approve the motion for Article 14.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Zafirovich?
for these past two articles, shouldn't the water sewer also get a say if they approve it? Or is that implied because this is what?
They submit the budget. It's their budget that has been submitted and worked out. Any further discussion? None appearing, then all those in favor of approving the motion for Article 14?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Article 15?
Yes, sir. Article 15 is transfer of funds to and from stabilization fund account. If you make a note here, there are two motions under this article. The first motion is pretty much housekeeping. We do this every year. We make a transfer from the raise and appropriate, which comes from the Millennium Fund, to the stabilization in the amount of $80,000. The Finance Committee has approved this motion.
Mrs. Singer?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve
Motion?
motion 1.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? None appearing, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously.
Motion 2 is, and I'll read it for you, it says, I move that the selectmen are authorized to acquire by purchase, gift, eminent domain, or otherwise, for general municipal purposes, so-called a parcel of land consisting of 1.3 acres, more or less, described on the town assessor's maps as lot number 35A16, and addressed as 91 Masonic Home Road, that the sum of $150,000 is appropriated from stabilization fund to pay costs for this acquisition, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Singer?
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would this be a reasonable time to give a brief explanation for those listening? For a number of years in this town, we've had a fire station building committee. And there's been much discussion as to where this new fire station, when the town goes forward with it, where it should be located. There have been many different spots discussed. The overriding goal is to keep it towards the center of town. We found out fairly recently that there's a property that's available, the property listed here. It abuts a parcel of land that's already owned by the town, and the parcel that's already owned by the town wraps around the back of an existing house and then comes up to the land where the police station is. So this parcel would be able to be connected to the police station without going on to the main road. We also believe, and Ms. Craver, myself, Chief Cloutier, and Mr. Morrow, Chairman of the Finance Committee, walked this property, and we are all in agreement, and the chief particularly, that we could, the way the house that exists on this property is situated, we could divide up the property, take enough land to build a fire station, sell off the house with enough yard to be a good value, a good yard for a good home for someone, and recoup most of, if not all, the cost of purchasing it. So we really think it's a win-win. The committee hasn't met to discuss a time frame on a new fire station, but we've all known for years that we're at the point where we do need one. It's going to be coming up. Parcels of land that work this well for this type of use come along very, very rarely. And it was our feeling that the time is right, you know, the parcel is right and the potential price is right, that we should move on this. And then when the time is right, that we can get into discuss the possibilities of what would be involved in a new fire station. Mr. Cooper?
Yeah, I'm very much in favor of this. The only thing I would ask the select board to do is, we don't want to, in the past, when we bought plots of land with homes and stuff, they ended up costing us much more because there wasn't diligence in the beginning. So whatever a private citizen would do, I know because the town is getting it, you can overlook those, but I would ask that we get, you know, a water test, that we have a house inspection, all the things that we do normally. So when this is purchased, that we know that we can sell the house without having any problems further down the line.
That's a fair point, thank you. And I can say this discussion has already been had, and where the goal would be to divide the property and sell the house, those precautions would be taken, those tests would be done.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion from the board. We already have the motion in the second, that came in, that's right, thank you. Then is there any other discussion on the motion? None appearing, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously, thank you. Move on to Article 16.
Article 16 is capital items and related contracts, and there are again two motions under this article. The first motion is the funding source is stabilization and the cable account, and the purposes would be for the police, for 2 cruisers replacements at $60,000. That would be $45,000 for a new cruiser and $15,000 for a refurbished one. Highway 4x4 pickup truck for $37,123. Tech committee computer network replacement $25,000, and town hall phone system $35,700. The phone system is from the cable account, and that was previously earmarked towards paying off the dark fiber, and now we have completed the dark fiber payments, and we'd like to earmark that towards the town phone system. I can tell you that I am starting to get regular calls that their phone systems are down, and we are having trouble.
Thank you.
I'll vouch for that.
I would entertain a motion with regards to motion 1 on the article.
I move that we make a motion that we approve motion 1.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there a discussion? None appearing, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you. Motion number 2.
And the second motion is to move that the town vote to appropriate the following amounts to the departments, fire and highway, for the purpose of the fire would be to replace the combined tanker 1 and engine 5 in an amount of $321,840, and for the highway, a 2015 Freightliner dump truck in the amount of $117,756, for a total of $439,596, and the funding source of this would be a debt exclusion.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Zafirovich.
move that we approve this motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? I'm going to just offer brief by way of explanation. Again, one thing, as the budget has been tightening, one thing that we've been looking to try to do is to move some of the larger capital items that we need from coming out of our regular working capital funds to a debt exclusion, which is borrowing the money. And that's, to put all the cards on the table, that's an increase in taxes for the life of that loan. Once that loan is paid off, those taxes go back down. Those taxes go away. So it is for a finite amount of time. And I would also, and I know I've mentioned this before, and because it just still bothers me that we had a situation a few months ago where we had to borrow a fire engine from the town of Spencer because all of our fire engines were broken down. We're way past the point of needing a new fire engine. And the same with highway department. You see the big dump trucks that they're using, they're very old, and they go through every winter with duct tape and, clothes hangers to keep them going for another year. So our hope in bringing this forward is that we can increase these vital pieces that are needed. And again, through a debt exclusion, when they're paid off, that funding goes away. Any other discussion on the motion? None appearing, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you. Article 17.
17 is cemetery perpetual care, to see if the town will vote to accept the sum of $4,075 as trust funds from individual persons. The income from each sum to be used for the perpetual care for the Charlton cemeteries. And the motion is to approve that article as printed. The Finance Committee has approved this motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer,
I move to approve.
we have a motion. Is there a second? Is there discussion? None appearing, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries.
Mr. Chair, number 18 is reauthorization of revolving funds. For the most part, these have stayed the same. There is a change from the Highway Hazardous Waste Revolving Fund. We have put that under the Fire Department. As you know, that those duties have been assumed underneath that department instead of being a standalone hazardous waste department. And lastly, you'll see Building Department Permitting Revolving Fund. As you know, the fees from the online permits, we are required to pay 3%, which is charged by the online company as part of the payment for the software and maintenance. And it makes sense to put that into a revolving fund and be able to pay that out from there.
Thank
The
you.
Finance Committee approved this motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Zafirovich,
I move that we accept the motion for Article 18.
we have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? None appearing, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you. Article 19.
Article 19 is land acquisition for the new recreational fields complex. This amount is $500,000. It is a debt exclusion. And when the Finance Committee met with the Recreation Commission, one of the things that they had asked for was that the language be changed in the motion from having it be contingent upon the development of a Charlton Community Recreation Complex, and to change the motion to general municipal purposes. That change has been changed in the motion at this point, and the Finance Committee has approved.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Oh, wait a minute, let me, yes, Finance Committee approved
The
as amended.
Then I will make a motion to support this article. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer?
the taxpayers will decide what happens to all of this at town meeting, but I will point out, and one of the reasons I'm withholding any comments or decisions myself on this is, for me, there are still unanswered questions. It's not just a question of acquiring land or building a complex, it's also the question of the cost to maintain the facility every single year that the town will have to pay for.
Cooper?
This one is just for the purchase of the land, and I think the land has a lot of possibilities. It could be used for a complex, but it could be used for other things also. It has a potential for solar arrays. It has a potential for the senior center. And it's not like if we purchase the property, we can't do anything with it afterwards if we decide not to use it for any of those general purposes. We could also sell it afterwards.
So we're not
Thank
tied
you.
into having to use that land for a rec complex.
The way that, the way this motion was amended for FinCom, no, we're not.
Okay.
And development of the field complex is another article, so this is strictly for the purchase of the land. We do have a motion and a second. Is there any other further discussion? None appearing, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you. Article 20, Ms. Craver?
Article 20 is the development of Phase 1 for the new recreational fields complex. The amount appropriated is $3,953,345. It is also a debt exclusion, and the Finance Committee does not support this motion.
I would entertain a motion from the board.
Mr. Chair, I move to not support.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to not support. Is there a discussion?
Mr. Chair, I believe that Mr. Singer eloquently spoke about the issues, especially with the town budget and where we are right now. As I support Ms. Cooper's, decision, we should buy the land, get that locked up, and then as things get better, we can probably see how things are going.
Thank you. Mrs. Zafirovich?
In addition to that, it just, this is a very large sum of money, and the taxpayers only have so much stomach for their exclusions for increasing their taxes, albeit temporarily. But there's other things that are needed more so right now, and that includes a lot of capital needs.
Do you have any further discussion? I'm just going to offer, having served 4 years on the Recreation Commission and coached for more years than I want to think about. This is a big number, and it's certainly, as Mrs. Singer stated, it's going to be up to the taxpayers to support this. The Recreation Commission has done yeoman's work with no money to get programs and facilities in this town. This, as it's conceived, goes way beyond building a field, building a park, building a ball field for the kids. This is educational opportunities, walking trails. There's so many different aspects to this. So I completely understand the constraints of the number with relation to everything else that we have. As much out of respect for everything that the Recreation Commission has done, and my ongoing belief that we need more facilities in this town, not just for the kids, but for the town in general. I will be voting to support it, but I certainly understand where the concerns with it. Mrs.
I
Zafirovich?
just want to echo how wonderful a job they have been doing with this, and I would love to see this come to fruition, but this year's not the right year for this.
And I wholeheartedly agree. This is not the year to do this. Let's get out of the mess that we're in now.
Mr. Chair.
Understood. Mr. Singer?
In my motion, I'll just state, actually, I agree with what's been said, that this has nothing to do with not wanting to have the complex. Even from a personal standpoint, my family, we all go outdoors, whether it's running, biking, fishing, it's just playing soccer, coaching. So sure, we would love to have this, but as Mr. Grass just said, and Mr. Zafirovich, there is so much more that we have to deal with at this time. And we'll have, hopefully, the land, which means once that's locked up, there is no urgency to have to build it now. We have the land, we can build it next year or 3 years. We can watch the financial situation and see how that develops, knowing we have that land, and when the time is right, then we can pull the trigger.
A complete agreement. Again, I have a lot of personal reasons why I feel a connection to this, and the voters will decide. That's the great thing of the system, and believe me, been living with this budget for quite a while. Believe me, I understand the constraints of it. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Mrs. Zafirovich?
Just reading through this, I'm not sure if I'm missing something, but wouldn't the motion that should be presented on town meeting floor should include contingent upon Article 19 passing? The mention is I'm not sure the borrowing expenditure sources vote unless the town meeting shall vote to exclude the amount required to pay any borrowing authorized by its vote for limitations on total property taxes. Doesn't mention having the need for having the property.
Is that because it just gets killed outright, Rob? Yeah, I think that's what usually happens. We don't tie them, they don't tie them to the other,
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Singer?
just another question that actually came to mind when Mr. Safarovich made his comment. For something like this, is the motion fine, or does something like this also have to pass town meeting and also pass a ballot, or no, just town meeting?
Where it is a debt exclusion, it would have to pass the ballot in an election as well.
Okay, so we do or don't have to have that mentioned in the motion?
No,
It's
that's
just
a matter of law.
Okay,
Debt exclusions have to go to election as well as town meeting.
okay, so it's a two-step process.
Exactly. Do you have any further discussion? None appearing, and then all those in favor of supporting the motion to not
The
approve?
motion
Oh,
was to
Not
not support.
support, that's a voting,
Is
I'm
it
asking for a
to
vote to
support
support
the
the motion
motion
to
to
not
not
approve. All those in favor of the motion to not support?
Aye.
Oppose? I oppose. So the motion carries 4-1. Thank you. Article 21.
Article 21 is amendments to the Charlton general bylaws regarding town-owned lakes and ponds, docks, moorings, and berthing bylaw, and the non-criminal disposition enforcement procedure bylaw to same. And this is,
I believe that FinCom
Conservation.
takes no action on this, as it's not a financial issue.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Zafirovich?
that we approve the motion for Article 21.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
We have a motion and a second. And where this does, just for informational purposes, where this does not ask for Finance Committee approval, that there's no financial implications, the Town Bylaw Committee has voted to approve, I believe. Have they voted on it yet, Ms. Craver? Conservation Commission and the Town Bylaw Committee?
believe they did.
So the Conservation Commission and the Bylaw Committee, I believe, have approved it. Mr. Mr. McGrath and Mr. Zafirovich.
Just out of curiosity, the last time this came up at town meeting, a lot of people didn't agree on this. And with residents of the lake, who are members of the Lake Association, voicing the most display. I'm just curious, out of all the hearings and the discussion that they've had about this, have they addressed those concerns? Okay.
Mrs. Zafirovich?
From the numerous other hearings and discussions on this, that the reason why they're presenting it again, because they have so many, they address all the concerns, and from what I've heard, that, as a lake house owner, this doesn't bother me at all. It gives the town police power to deal with issues that the town does not have any legal authority to pass. I think it'll be good for the town.
And again, the voters will have the final say on if those issues have been addressed adequately or not.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second to support the article. Is there any further discussion? None appearing, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you. Article 22, Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. Article 22 is amendments to the Charlton general bylaws. It's the solicitor's bylaw. Chief Purtier's here if you have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for the chief on this? Then I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer?
I move to support.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion? None appearing, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you. Article 23,
Article 23 is amendments to the Charlton general bylaws. Article 21, removal of snow and ice from sidewalks. Basically what this does is change the responsible party for enforcement from the superintendent of highways to the police chief.
I move that we support Article 23.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. Mrs.
I
Zafirovich?
believe the chief of police also approves this, correct?
Any further discussion? None appearing, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Article 24,
Article 24 is the amendment to the Charlton General Bylaws, public consumption of marijuana, and the chief is here if you have any questions.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Zafirovich.
I move that we approve the motion for Article 24.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? None appearing, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you. Article 25,
Article 25 is amendments to the Charlton General Bylaws, civil fingerprinting license bylaw, and basically what this is doing is changing for reissuing licenses from every year to every 3 years. And this has been recommended by the chief of police.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chair,
Mr. Singer.
I move to support.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? None appearing, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries.
The next, Article 26 is a bylaw to require a connection to the public water line. The Water Sewer Commission met and they have forwarded, which I believe I forwarded to you, a new motion in talking with them, and they did check with the moderator, Peter Cooper, to make sure that it was within the scope, and he has determined that it is still within the scope because the motion is doing less than what was advertised that they were going to be considering. I have the motion here, so in trying to make it as simple for people at town meeting, what I've done is put in the motion, which normally because it was so specific, we usually generally put the motion in that I move Article 24 be accepted as printed. I will print in the booklet, if that's okay with you, putting the water sewer has an alternate motion, and then print that in there so that people at home will have it in front of them and will be able to really see what the difference is. So I think it just makes it more clear, and the Water Sewer Commission is okay with that, and the Finance Committee approves this as amended also.
Was this,
Chair?
Mr. Singer?
Go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
Just a question on Article 26. This, I believe, had some input or discussion with the Board of Health regarding whether it should be a bylaw or a Board of Health regulation. In the end of those discussions between Water Sewer, Board of Selectmen, and Board of Health, was it determined, including the Board of Health's agreement, that the bylaw route was the way to go?
Yes, and I would also put town council in those discussions as well.
What's also happening is the Water Sewer Commission is going to be doing regulations that also further expand this motion, this bylaw.
And to be fair and candid, there were concerns from the Board of Health on this, but after we discussed and addressed those concerns, they did support this. Mr. McGrath?
Chair, I make a motion that we approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
A question, is that a motion as amended or as originally?
As amended, I'm gonna go with.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll offer one bit of discussion because I've been asked about this a little bit as well. And just to be clear on this, what this article will do is require any person building on a piece of land that abuts a water line, that person will be required to hook that property up to that water line. Someone asked me, does that mean we can only build on parcels that have water line going by them? No, not the case at all. What it means is that if you're building on a lot that has a water line going by it, you must hook up to that water line. The reason for that being the meetings we've had with ExxonMobil and the town of Southbridge about getting water into town, the primary issue is we are not using enough water, plain and simple. Regardless of what you hear, what you read, it's nothing to do with any relationships between the towns at this point. It is solely the fact that we're not using enough water and the water is staying in the pipes too long and degrading. So our goal in this is to get our usage up, to increase the quality of the water in the pipes. And we actually did speak with builders, particularly residential builders, are very much in favor of this. The reason being it gives them more leeway as to where they can position houses on lots, because they don't have to worry about, and John, give more if I'm missing something on this, where wells are put in relation to buildings and septic systems and all of that. So it gives some more leeway and freedom for builders, so the builders are actually in favor of this as well.
It's a big thing with the way they lay out their lots. Septic system, the dimensions between the septic system and the well usually really is a precursor to what they have to do to build.
Thank you. Mrs. Zafirovich?
And just to clarify again, especially in this amended motion, it lays it out, that this is any new principal building constructed, so that would not include any additions, garages, barns,
And that's
et cetera.
the amendment that we got from Water Sewer. And there's also a factor in here now that hardships will be considered as well,
At the discretion.
at the discretion of the Water Sewer Commission, exactly. Do you have any other further discussion on the motion? None appearing, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries, thank you. Article 27,
Okay, Article 27, 28, and 29 deal with the recodification of our bylaws. The first one, Article 27, is asking the town to allow us to change the numbering. The next one, Article 28, is some of the text changes, the numerals, fractions, and things like that. And Article 29 is to make some of the more changes, such as striking out text. And I'm going through these three, because you may just want to bundle them. Article 29 had, when the bylaw committee met, there was concern about one of the changes that the bylaw committee had asked for, which was to remove all of the fees out of the bylaws and put them in the Board of Selectmen. That has been removed by the bylaw committee at this time, so the motion for Article 29 is, I move that Article 29 be accepted as printed, provided, however, that the amount of any fee specified in the present version of the compiled general bylaws and the provisions as to how all such fees are established shall remain in effect, and that the revisions to be made in the text of such bylaws by vote under this motion shall not include any change in any such fee, nor any change in how such fee is to be established. By changing that motion, we have basically, the only text that we're really taking out is things that said anyone after this date, and the date's clearly gone by, so most of that's just housekeeping. So
Thank you.
I would recommend you consider those three as a bundle.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer?
I would move that we support Article 27, 20, and 29.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Article 30,
Article 30, Mr. Chairman, is acceptance of Mass General Law, Chapter 43D, expedited permitting and priority development site. As you remember, you had a roundtable jointly with the EDC and the Planning Board, had conversations about this. You had someone come in and speak on it. At that hearing, one of the participants had a piece of property that would like to put their property within this, and we are asking the town to accept it and to move forward on that parcel. So it's in relation to one individual parcel.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Zafirovich?
I move that we accept the motion for Article 30.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you. And again, Articles 31 through 33 are zoning, planning board issues that we generally don't take position on.
And just for your information, actually, I do have it in there
Yeah.
because it is recapturing and
Yeah.
to.
Oh,
It's part of the
Okay.
recodification.
It is part of the recodification,
And I can
okay.
tell you that the planning board did recommend approving all of these three.
Then I would ask if we would consider approving 31 through 33 as one. So
Motion
moved.
to approve.
We have a motion to approve in a second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you. Guess where we go now? To the budget, please. Where am I? Craven, would you start us, please?
Yes, sir. You started out with, cuts with the draft budget. Let me just go. All right, your draft budget, the request from the departments had put us, almost $1,200,000 with the original request from the school department. You made cuts that basically level funded, and you came out with, about $529,000 deficit. The finance committee asked for additional cuts, and right now, with those additional cuts, you have a deficit of $425,000. Those cuts, since the last time that you had looked at it, include eliminating the assistant dog officer, reducing the town planner and EDC director 4 hours, eliminating all seasonal cemetery help, eliminating the Board of Health assistant 2, eliminating the tree warden expense in dangerous trees, reducing treasurer's hours, reducing ZBA assistant hours, reducing contract obligations, reducing environmental budget, reducing street lights, going from a 5-day work week to a 4-day work week, adding $25,000 to the reserve fund, and reducing memorial and old home day funds. The cuts that you had already were eliminating a police officer, eliminating a firefighter, and eliminating the Board of Health post-closure monitoring.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Cooper?
I have a question about the assistant animal control. If there isn't an assistant, how can we have 24/7 coverage with one person?
Unfortunately, and I think that this was discussed when the board met with the staff, that at this point, we are not going to be able to maintain the same services. And I think we saw that, and that was clearly said when Chairman Swenson was talking to people about the override, that we had gotten to a point where we couldn't continue to maintain services at the level that we've enjoyed. Most towns around us have a part-time or one full-time animal control officer, and I can tell you, this isn't what we want to do. It certainly isn't what I would like to be looking at. I think that the assistant does a great job, and we have a great benefit. But if we're starting to look at what can we get by, when we looked at the cuts and what might be somewhere for the town to go, because the low-hanging fruit's gone. We really looked at what kind of services do we provide right now that we could continue to provide at either reduced or maybe a slower. I've had a conversation with the animal control officer, and her first concern was, you mean I have no vacations, I have no time off, there's nobody to help? And the reply back is, you're gonna have to look at ways to change what we're doing. So maybe there's a policy that from 10 to 6 in the morning, you don't go out and respond, and the police pick up the emergency calls. I would leave that to them to figure out, the same way that I've had the conversation with the Council on Aging, if Friday was closed and they eliminated their programs from Friday. They have to decide, or would decide, which programs and what things that they would not do.
Mr. McGrath?
Chair, and through the chair to the town administrator, Robin, how much is there revenue generated by the animal control officer, and how much is it, do we know?
There is absolutely funds generated by the animal control. The town clerk is the one that is supposed to be maintaining the license and the reports, and she is supposed to be giving that to the dog officer so that they can follow up with the licensing. We've had the ability of having the assistant be able to maintain those reports and keep follow-up, and she's done a great job. But those duties would go back to the town clerk. So I don't see that the collection would be different. Because I do believe the town clerk would be as diligent as Lisa had been.
Mr. Lou?
Good. I'd rather speak first, if I
Chief?
could. Okay. Several years ago, you put the animal control into my jurisdiction, my oversight. Since that time, we've established a new building using a lot of volunteer time. We've reined in, with the assistant's help, we've reined in a lot of people who were clearly in violation for years and years, okay, of not licensing dogs. We have an aggressive fine system, and we have a great managerial tool that we can look at and know who is delinquent because of the hours that are spent. And I can't believe for $100 a week, now you're worried about money coming in, okay? And I can tell you that from the calls that the animal control officer does and everything else, and I mean, I wish the town clerk was here to speak about the duties being reassigned back. But I would just say to you, there's a lot of other things that go on. The assistant animal control officer, before we didn't do anything with cats. So we have a great feline program. And so we do a lot of prevention too, as far as when we have those cats that are not domestic, that are feral. And so this year, what I had sent you electronically, and I don't know if you shared it out with the board, but I shared it with you, the town administrator, and with the finance committee, for that $100 a week. I mean, they brought in more than their salaries. And I can tell you, okay, unequivocally, that if next year when you're looking for money, if you vote to do so, and not a threat, but I'm just saying, just the volume of what that person does in support of the full-time person, those monies are going to be reduced. You can't expect this person here to be 24/7, to be doing, even with the assistance of the town clerk, be down at the courthouse processing fines and running after people who haven't licensed their dogs, and doing all the other things that come along. So I would just say to you, and my particular person that's under my watch as the assistant provides me quarterly reports, comes in all the time, gives me updates, in addition to to Ann. And I would just say to you, what you're getting out of that person for $100 a week, and what you get in annual revenue, don't cut your nose off to spite your face. I mean, if you look at those Excel spreadsheets, if we were in the negative, I could say that. And if we weren't down at court processing those people, okay? We've gotten a lot of other people who used to thumb their nose at, I licensed one dog, but I got 2 or 3. We have a great program here, and I don't want to go backwards. And I know you're looking at pennies, and I'm here at these meetings, and I know you're struggling. But the idea is, when you have a position that's bringing in money, and you have these people bringing in more than what their salaries are, and running a very good program, and it goes beyond just that position. It also goes on as far as the quality of health of people, making sure these dogs are vaccinated, and if you don't vaccinate them, they're right on top of you to make sure, so that if, preventing people from having being bitten by dogs that are rabid. And I can, Ann's in and out of my station all the time. Okay, it's unbelievable. She was in the station 2 or 3 times today. And for that small amount. Now I know it's not her position, but now couple that back, okay, and then have her take on the assistance. And like I said, the town clerk's not here to speak to what was said, that she's going to take on those duties. I don't know if she can take on those duties, and I don't know, does she have the capacity to do it, or, with her office or her assistant, maybe she does. But but some of the other ancillary duties that go on with that position absolutely, positively won't get done. And I can tell you, we'll be sitting here next year, and you'll be looking for that $5,000 or that $5,200, whatever it is, and it'll be more than that because you'll have lost that revenue without that person.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Singer?
For me, I'm looking over this list. It's not the only small financial item that's, on here to be cut, but it's, most of these are 10,000, 15, 30, and up. I can see keeping in the assistant animal control officer for another reason. From a financial perspective, it's a $5,000 a year, but beyond that, I'm thinking about the health of the community, where, let's say you have a rabid animal, and I assume animal control would handle that, but if we have one ACO officer and that person's not available, who's gonna handle that, in a situation like that as well?
Thank you. Mrs. Zafirovich?
I understand that we're at a point where we're going to have to start making cuts that people will feel will hurt. But for the savings on this, I can't support eliminating that position.
Mr. McGrath?
Chair, I agree with both David and Joe, and the thing is, I think the bang for the buck is there. I believe they cover their own expenses with their salaries and everything else from the spreadsheet that I saw, and it's not. I don't think it's a wise decision to cut that out.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Singer?
So, can I make a motion to leave that in?
You certainly can.
I'd like to make a motion.
Any motion you'd like.
I'd like to make a motion to leave the assistant animal control officer in the budget for, I can't find it,
It's 5537, David.
for 5537, Mr. Chair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Mrs. Zafirovich?
This year's gonna be tough. Next year's probably gonna be tougher. So next year everything will be on the table again.
I'm just gonna offer my bid here. As we've gone through this budget process and we've looked at eliminating or changing hours, eliminating positions, doing things, the first thing that happens inevitably is that the affected parties come up and justify the positions, which is very easy to do, and it's the right thing to do. The positions are needed. There's no question that the positions are needed. If they weren't needed, we wouldn't have had them in the first place. The fact of the matter is, and before I even say this, I'm thinking I'm going to sound kind of cold saying this, and the only thing I can hope for is that people know me now. No, that isn't really the case. But we're at the fact now where we have no choice. If the board agrees to keep 5,300 in there for animal, that's fine. That's all well and good. But I believe me, I understand we're losing revenue from the license fees and fines and all of that. We're losing tens of thousands of dollars in ambulance revenues because we can't fund the fire department adequately. We're having long response times for police coming to your house, investigating crimes, because we can't fund the police department adequately. The people of this town spoke last spring. They said, this is what we're willing to spend, figure it out. We're at that point where there are not cuts that can be made that aren't going to affect people. The people that we have in these jobs are doing their jobs admirably. As I've said before, they're being asked to do more with less, and they're doing it. But we're at the point where we have to make those cuts. If the cost-benefit analysis for the assistant animal control officer says we're going to be benefit by spending that money, that's fine. But I just wanted to make that more of a general statement as to where we are. Mr. McGrath and Mr. Singer.
Chair, I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I'm a latecomer to all the budget items here, and I know, nobody gets kudos on the finance committee for what they do. It's a tough job, and the effort between everybody involved going through the budget is immense. I don't believe a lot of people know what was even discussed, and I think they should know. I think one of the items was not just shutting off some of the streetlights, it was shutting off all the streetlights, okay, for savings of $56,000. the other item that I brought up was, don't hire snowplow contractors, do it all with the town's help. Eliminate hiring the outside contractors to snowplow. Not maintain the ball fields or the town common. That's where we are with this budget right now. And like I said, I'm a latecomer on this. This is, it's a case of, we have a lot of things that need to be done and we just don't have the money to do it. I support keeping the assistant animal control officer. That I believe that's a no-brainer just because of the revenue side of it, the revenue that's generated, and far be it from the job that she does. It's unbelievable. That's
Thank
my
you.
speech.
We do have a, thank you, Mr. McGrath.
Mr. Chair.
We do have a motion, Mr. Singer, I'm sorry.
So just the one comment I wanted to make, generally, and I believe you know, that we all know that the kind of person you are. B,
I'll take that as a compliment, I think.
That's yes, that's a compliment.
Thank you.
Yes.
Not offhand either.
Yes, that's a compliment. And I think that, that generally I agree with you when it comes to this kind of item. I will point out, though, of all of the items on here that we're looking at the cut, that to me is the only one that could affect someone's health in the community. And to me, that's also a factor that's above and beyond anything else. There's no other cut on here that could affect you in your health. This one has that potential, so that also has that factor. The one comment I'll make, I understand times are tight, but I've argued repeatedly, and you know this, that I still believe there are things that we can do as a town to, how to put it, changes that we can make in how things are done and the way things are done in this town to affect our budget in a positive way. I'll put it that way. But we haven't gotten to that yet, so we'll see where the road takes us. But that's one thing I think makes that ACO position very different from every other cut.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the floor to maintain the assistant animal control officer position with roughly $5,300. Other comments on the motion? Yes, ma'am.
Lisa Westwell, and I am the Assistant Animal Control Officer. I appreciate the support of the board, my chief, and the position, as you guys know, is worth way more than the $5,300 that I make every year. But I just wanted to point out some things that you might not know. Our budget has been cut just like everybody else's over the last few years. And because of Friends of Charlton Animal Shelter, which is our supporting 501c3 nonprofit in this town, in 2012, they expended over $1,500 to help out animal control for things that we didn't have money in our budget for. And in 2013, they expended over $1,100 in things that we didn't have in our budget. We're scraping the bottom of our budget this year, and we haven't sent out reminders to license yet. So right now, dogs not licensed so far for 2014, 948 dogs at $50 a dog is $47,000 in revenue. So the last time that this came up and the town clerks were available to speak, their comment as far as the dog list goes was because of the hours it takes to maintain the list, and it's more than you think. It's a lot more than just putting in rabies and keeping track. We have to keep track of all of our citations, who's void, who needs to come off the list. But it is very time consuming to write citations. It is a parking ticket. They're written by hand. So it's not a small job time-wise, but we put an enormous amount of effort into our job, and I do have to say that we do produce in a lot of revenue, and I think we do a really good job in our department. And I think that after 7 years, it would really be a shame to go backwards, because now that we're getting people in compliance, if they know that we're not going to be sending them fines, they will snub their nose, and we're going to be back in the same position that we were in 7 years ago. So I would ask that you retain the position, if for nothing else, than to, keep the revenue that we do bring to the town.
Thank you. Do you have any other discussion on the motion? None appearing, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I have one, I know we have some people here to discuss, so the line item that I'd like to bring up and discuss, have this board discuss, is one thing that's been discussed is, beyond discussed, is proposed in this budget is closing the town hall on Fridays and reassigning some of those hours. I'm sure we have people here that want to discuss that. The thought being, for those at home, for those that newer on the board, as we've gone through this budget process and the same budget process in previous years, our goal, our primary overriding goal has been to keep people whole, is to not have to lay off people. We've been successful in doing that. We've had to take some other tacks. And where we are now, the thought is, as Mr. Cooper explained so well earlier, the hope is that by closing the town hall Fridays, it would be closed from Thursday evening through Monday morning, and this cost savings would be in energy. The plan also in that is to reassign hours, to keep people whole. The hope is also that in doing some reassigning of hours, that we may be able to give the community better service, and by not having the town hall close at 3:30 most days. Now, in all fairness, we also have to say that we've also had discussions with the library about closing the library an equal amount of time to try to justify savings over there. And as we recognized earlier, we're fully aware that I believe the number is right, that if we were to close and reduce those hours, that the library would lose 25% of its state aid. So the factors that are playing into this that we need to discuss as a board and make a decision on as a board. With regard to the library, we would get energy savings. They would lose a good chunk of state aid, a substantial amount of money that they rely on. As far as closing town hall, the upside is, our goal is to do this and not have anybody lose any hours, lose any pay, to keep everyone whole. The downside of this, which we also have to be painfully aware of, could cause some real hardship for employees that have childcare issues, family issues that have to be dealt with additionally. So it is in the budget to close that day, but I would like to entertain discussion and make sure we hear from people and have a good, well-thought discussion before we act on this, because whatever we do, it's going to impact people. Mr. Zafirovich?
Before we get to the town hall, I just want to settle the library, especially with Mr. Sage sitting up there. I think what Mr. Cooper said earlier, that I don't think it will behoove us to close the library for 3 days, but I think we should move towards closing the library for 2 consecutive days. I feel as though Sunday and Mondays would be the time to close and have the library open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Mr. Sage?
Well, I'm going to defer to our chairperson and the library director, but my bigger question is, when are we going to actually have a budget in our hands that we can look at so that we can actually study it before Monday when we have town meeting? I think it's a disservice to the people of Charlton not to have that material in our hands for a period of time so that it can actually be looked at. What I see is what's going to happen is it's going to be maybe 3 days by the time all of this is done, and to me that's inadequate amount of time, and I'm almost tempted to recommend that town meeting get postponed for 2 weeks.
Thank you. To answer your question, and for all those who are asking the same question, which is a very legitimate question, the hope is that we would have a budget to publish on Thursday morning. And there's it's not adequate. It's completely inadequate. The only reason I can offer up is that we're wrestling with issues. We are wrestling with the issue of losing 24/7 fire coverage. We're wrestling with the issue of losing state funding for libraries. We're wrestling with how changing hours at this town hall is going to impact not only the budget but the lives of the people that are employees. I've said it before, and it always comes back to bite me, is that this has been by far the worst budget season that I've experienced in this board. I'm not offering that as an excuse. I'm just stating as a fact that that's why we've had issues that we've just been look in 8 ways to Sunday to try to get some reasonable resolution to.
Which means that there's absolutely no time for anybody to look at this budget, to come to town meeting with a informed decision. Nobody, we're trying to get people to come to town meeting besides the 110 or so people in town who make the decisions for town. I'd much rather see 400, 500 people at that meeting. I'd like to see 7,000 people who are registered voters at that meeting. I'm blind to that fact, but now we have a weekend to make a decision about something that is so critical to this town. I think it's unfair, and I see no reason to have a town meeting on Monday when we have all of June to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper?
Yeah, I'll speak for myself on the Finance Committee. If you think this is fun, to go through a $23 million budget and have in front of you to cut people, yeah, we could have had this done a long time ago. We could just say, everybody's cut by 5 hours, the budget's balanced, we got the money, and do. But, you know, when people's lives are involved, I think that it should be understood by the townspeople that, yeah, would I agree? Would I love to have this done a couple of weeks ago? I mean, we haven't even voted on this budget yet. We're gonna do that tomorrow night. But this budget has changed dozens of times over the past 6 months that we've been here almost every week discussing this. I sometimes, and I'll throw a little thing in here, that people are upset because their stipends got cut in half. Well, the Finance Committee doesn't get zero for the hours and hours, not just being at the meetings, but how many hours I spend at home. Robin probably gives us 5 emails a day on new stuff that's coming in. And so there's a lot of decisions to be made, and I just would ask the townspeople to give us a little slack here on this year, having this budget. We don't get the state's budget till just a month ago. So we don't even know what we're gonna get from the state. The school we got last week. So if we had the school a month ago, we could have had this done a month ago. But we can't do the town's budget when 54% of the budget is from the school, and we don't have those figures.
Thank you. Mrs. Zafirovich?
One thing to that, a huge increase just came a few days ago. So the budget's always in play and it's constantly changing. So it's very hard to get this nailed down in a timely fashion. But I'd like to hear from
Thank you.
Thank you.
from Ms. Hanson.
Ms. Hanson, if you would, please.
Cheryl Hanson, Library Director. I just wanted to let the board know that my Board of Library Trustees has not met since any of this has come up in the last few weeks. But I wanted to let you know what my recommendation is going to be to them. My recommendation to my board will be that during the summer months, we will be closed Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And from Labor Day through Memorial Day, we'll be closed on Sundays and Mondays. That way, we can close on Saturdays during the summer with no repercussions from the state. We would lose the 25% of our state aid if we were closed 3 days during the school year. That's when that goes.
Thank you for clearing
So
that
that's
up.
going to be my recommendation to them. It will be up to them. They decide from there.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That was good information.
Through the
Thank
chair,
you.
was
Mr.
that
McGrath?
figured in already, Peter? That the closing the 3 days on the summer?
The money that we have put in there is of savings. To be real honest, is the best guess. I mean, the same with Brookfield. Brookfield did it. They never dreamt it was gonna save 50%. We have only projected until you actually do it and see how it all works out.
No, but I mean, on this budget, were you counting on the library for the summer closing 3 days
Yeah,
during
because
the summer?
they said that
Okay.
a couple of meetings ago.
All right, just, all right.
Which would save on the electrical costs.
Okay.
Which our electrical costs are higher than our
Yeah,
heating
because
costs.
of these,
Mr. Zafirovich?
Ms. Graber, through the chair, does that reflect in this budget? Be presented to us?
Yes, it does. It's, reducing $20,000 from what we're gonna have
So
to add, but I have to tell you that we had some more bad news in the last 2 days. As you know, 4 years ago, I negotiated the contract for our electricity. Was able to get it at 7 cents, all-inclusive for 4 years, which is pretty unheard of, but we worked hard on that. The contract is up in December, which will be halfway through, FY15, and the numbers I'm now seeing is, 10 cents. So we're going from 7 cents to 10 cents. I'm gonna wait as long as I can to lock in and see if it looks like it's gonna go down, but the trending right now is going up. So, I'm not sure where that's gonna leave us with that kind of an increase, but, I thought I needed to tell you.
Thank you. Ms. Hanson, thank you for the update.
Just through the chair, Robin, does it appear that a lot of contracts are lapsing at that time? Is there a lot of people in the same boat as us?
Well, I've had conversations with 2 other towns about aggregating all of our load. Who we have been working with before was Constellation, which is a nonprofit energy company through the MMA, and we've gotten very good deals from them. But so I will continue to work with the other 2 towns and see if they're interested in aggregating along with us.
Mr. Singer, did you have something? Or no? Okay, thank you. So we want to move back. We have a plan, or at least we know what the library director is going to be proposing to the Board of Trustees, and we'll wait to hear back on that. In the meantime, we need to decide as a board what we want to do with regards to the hours and days of this building. So I would open that up for discussion. Chief?
Through the chair. Obviously, I'm not in charge of this building. The only thing that I see from whatever your board decides, there are some other specifics in relation to this building as opposed to other communities. When the town hall closed across the street and then became the library, and you came over here, a couple of things came. You have a senior center here now, and you also have Chip in here. So if you close from Thursday to Monday, I would just say to you, you need to think about however you do it, unless, you have to carve out time for Chip-in. They generally come in like on a Friday, and then they have their distribution on a Saturday, so you would need to make some movement to allow them to be able to serve the community, with providing them with food. So, the other thing is there are different events that take place in the senior center over, the months, over the years, during the year. So, you may want to define what those are. I know there's just some other things that some of you know, some of you don't know. I mean, some of the preparation for meals for the seniors. I know Mrs. Keel's in here sometimes Saturday and Sunday preparing those meals ahead of time. Will she be allowed to come in and do that? I know the temperature is going to be down, but if she decides she wants to come in and use the ovens and that, just some of those considerations. But for the volume of the year, if you decide to do that, and however you parse things out with the employees, I would just say to you, some consideration for some of those other things that go on here, because you have things that take place on Saturdays in here with the Golden Age Club, and things. And so I would just say to you, just think about some of those other things. If you say it's no, it's no. And we move on. But I would just say to you, even if let's just take the senior center out, just the idea, you need to really consider what you're doing with Chip-in, because that really provides a great service for people here who are struggling for for those foods, for that food product. And so the idea is they need to be able to have access to come in, work in there, and to use electricity for lights and things like that. It's limited because it's not every day. I think it's once a month or whatever. But I know that they're bringing in food as they get it and things like that.
One thing I can promise you is this is a very small building in a very small town. Someone has a thought down the back corner of that wing, it takes about a second and a half to get to the far corner of the other wing.
Yeah.
Once this idea was floated out there, we started getting feedback immediately from everyone that would be affected.
Yeah.
So we've had those discussions. We've had the discussion, one of the biggest ones was seniors would lose we'd have
Yes.
seniors that might lose a hot meal
Right.
one day a week.
And
We're looking at
and
all
for
of
the
that.
and for everybody that's at home listening to everybody grappling with all this, and I know everybody's thought, what can we do? Where can we save? And it's not without a lot of angst that everybody's making these decisions. So I'm saying, as you make some painful decisions and doing modifications, and whether they come to fruition or not, the thing is, just so that we don't lose some key things that really benefit a lot of people. I know you talked about, like with the seniors, if they lose their meals on Friday, you have discussed, working with Elaine Matteris to direct them, like during the year, to Bay Path, because they have a reduced meal program there, and you talked about discussing with the Masonic Home or maybe a local business where you could direct them, or maybe Meals on Wheels if they qualify. So for the people that are at home and people that are here, I mean, all those discussions have been had. It isn't like you're just cold and just say, hey, so it's been tough, and it's not over yet, and wherever it goes, but some of those things, and I'll leave you with this, and I've said it before, when you slice everything down, and next year, if history continues to repeat itself, and you have that large education budget eating $300,000 to $500,000 more from your municipal side, I don't know where else you go. Because as you so eloquently said, and the town administrator has too, is the additional police, that I've looked for, that Chief Cloutier for his staffing, and I know where it's tough fiscally right now. I know it's very tough, but at some point you have to have an infusion of money, by raising that base up, so that way it's going to pay for services. I don't know what, for those of you that where I live in Spencer, I don't know what the answer is going to be. Should know shortly. 8 o'clock the polls close, and they had some big ticket items, about $1.7 million over there. And if that doesn't go, I don't know what the community where I reside is going to struggle with. I know what's been forecast. So as you go forward, and people in town that are listening to this, please call your selectman and your town administrator and give them some feedback. I know people keep saying no, no, no on different things, but there's a point, and take a good hard look at where you are as far as what your tax rate is, because if you look around, there could be a small infusion of to raise the base up and to help town services. I don't think with all the hard work that everybody's done in almost 20 years that I've been here, you want us to be regressive and to lose that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So again, I would like to ask the board for some direction on where we want to go with the issue of Fridays.
You want that one motion?
We have to get there eventually. If you want to start it that way, that's fine.
Mr. Chair, I move that town hall closes on Fridays.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Thank you. Discussion.
It's been discussed a lot.
It's been discussed. It has been
Just
discussed.
say that to the chair, Robin and I were standing outside about 2 weeks ago, and a citizen drove by screaming out the window, "Don't close the town hall." Well known to many of us. but
And-
it's, you know, you hate to laugh about, you know, that's the lighthearted moment of it. We're affecting people's lives, and I really don't like it. I really, really hate this.
And our staff here, and we will do our due diligence to make it as painless as possible, be as flexible as possible, and to come up with a plan to make sure no services are reduced because of this.
Which honestly, in my mind, makes it even a more difficult call, because we know, because we have such good people, we know that the job is gonna get done, and that just makes it that much harder to do this type of thing. And I will be candid in that I asked certain people in this building point blank, have we driven it too far? Are we too far down that road? Would the buildings be better off if we had one or two fewer people and wasn't as disruptive to everyone? And obviously, you get some mixed feedback on that, but the general consensus was, I believe that, you know, there is a level of appreciation for the fact that we're trying to keep people whole, and you know, for first motion, not affecting their pockets is, you know, affecting their pockets as little as possible. So, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? Ms. Crockett, would you come up, please? Oh, you got to do it. So you got to do it.
Have you made a decision on hours of operation?
I think, no, to the one word answer to the question would be no.
Could we have a meeting to discuss it, which would
I
work
think
best for the employees?
my hope would be that we could discuss it and address individual concerns as much as we can. Now, please don't read that into meaning that we're going to be able to accommodate everybody.
No, that's not what I'm asking.
but-
There is some people that maybe because of daycare issues, we could stagger. Somebody could work a little later. Somebody could come in later. Is the issue of the lunches still on the table?
At this point, I've said this before with this budget from top to bottom, everything is on the table. Everything's on the table, so I won't speak.
That will add another half hour to our day.
I'm not gonna speak for the town administrator, but I think from the perspective of this board, we completely understand the sacrifices that are being made by people.
And I think we'll work as a team and we'll try to help each other out.
And I'll also speak for the board and say we truly appreciate that. So everything is open for discussion at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe, Chair, that the team members, you know, everybody in town hall needs to have a say in this, and I do believe that in the spirit of cooperation, we should be as flexible as possible with all the employees.
Agreed, I'm sorry.
And one of the things that I think maybe we as a board don't say it all the time, how much we appreciate what does get done by the town workers. I know I do, you know, in the small portion that I've been responsible with other people for. But, you know, just listening to the way, you know, the chair has talked and other board members have talked in some very, very hard meetings that I've attended, they truly respect the workers here, okay?
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The last one I have that I don't want us to talk about, there had been discussion with regards to separating the positions of Economic Development Director and Town Planner. We met with the Economic Development Commission to discuss the impact and could it function. And one thing that really came out of that for me that I wasn't expecting to get out of that, but one thing that came out of that for me was that it really seems that the duties of the town planner and the economic development director are like this. And to try to separate out those duties would be very problematic. The suggestion was made, and actually the suggestion was made by an EDC member that instead of looking to separate that, if in fact we had to get a cost savings there, which we do, the discussion was to lower the number of hours each week. And the discussion, it went everywhere from 10%, which is 4 hours, to 20%, which was 8 hours. the discussions seem to settle on reducing the hours by 10%, 4 hours, which would give the town a savings of approximately $8,900, $9,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. I will put my own opinion on the table. Is I was hoping for more savings. I can live with that. It's better than no savings. We would also have the option down the road, if we just weren't realizing enough, we could revisit it. The other hope that was expressed in the joint meeting that we had was, if we get to the point where we have water on Route 20 and things are happening and we're building again, that we hopefully would need to go back and increase those hours again. That's always an option as well. So what I'm asking this board, what I'm asking for is the thoughts and vote of the board on how we want to proceed with the town planner, economic development director positions. Mr. McGrath?
Through the chair, I believe that the chairman of the finance committee was also on board with that discussion.
Yes, and I'm sorry if I didn't mention that. Yes, he was.
There
Yes, he
was a
was.
meeting with three
Yes, he
members
was.
of the Board of Selectmen there, the chairman of the EDC, quite a few of the EDC members, and the chairman of the finance committee. We hashed it around pretty good for, I guess, 2.5 hours. And this is what we came up with as a solution. After having the round table meetings and everybody's interested in development, as the chair of the EDC said, cut your nose off to spite your face, is not a good thing to do. So I believe it's an equitable solution. That's my take on it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mrs. Singer?
I'm not sure it's the right solution for the long term, but I'll support it as a start and see where it goes. So I would move to reduce the hours for the director by 4 hours.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? None appearing, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you.
And that was a difficult meeting.
It was insightful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
You want to talk about the rest of them?
Yeah, would you walk us through some of the other high points on this that we should?
Highs and lows.
Highs will be very quick.
The next one was eliminated all the seasonal cemetery help. My conversation with the cemetery director was that he would be able to utilize some of his funds in his revolving account or perpetual care account to keep one of his cemetery help. I don't know if you want to go through these one by one.
Chair, I'd appreciate if you just read them off.
Yeah, if we could.
Okay. Eliminated the Board of Health Assistant 2, eliminated the tree warden expense and dangerous trees, reduced the treasurer hours, reduced ZBA assistant hours, reduced contract obligations, reduced environmental, reduced streetlights. The 4-day work week you've already voted on, added $25,000 to the reserve fund and reduced memorial and Old Home Day funds.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just for anyone at home questioning why we would add $25,000 to the reserve fund, that's a fund that is used when an emergency happens. We say that about stabilization. But in the case of, in the winter, well, that's not a fair case. Unforeseen expenses. Thank you. And as we've cut departments and cut budgets, we have more and more unforeseen expenses. As Ms. Craver stated earlier, this has been the first fiscal year that we're currently in where we've run a deficit on the reserve fund, just because budgets have been cut so tight that there have been more emergencies. So we need to guard against that a little bit. $25,000 isn't enough, but it's a step. So, Mr. Sage?
So when you run a deficit on the reserve fund, where does the money come to fund those things that are the emergencies that you've spent?
Ms. Craver?
It wasn't an actual deficit. They were, as you know, we have a reserve fund. We have reserve fund transfers, which is when the department comes and says, I don't have the money to do this. 4 of my wheels on my truck is gone. And I didn't plan for this, or a breakdown. and that's an immediate transfer. They also have a reserve fund advisory, which we've built in so that the finance committee is able to track what the departments know, because if the departments aren't coming in and telling them that they have something unforeseen, then the finance committee has a hard time keeping, their thumb on the temperature to say, how are we doing? So what happens is when something significant happens that they had unplanned and it may impact their budget, they come into the finance committee, give them a reserve fund transfer advisory, and get that approved. So they know now that they can go and make the expenditure. They need to wait until the end of the year to have any monies transferred. And oftentimes it acts to put the finance committee on warning that they may be coming back. Oftentimes, if we have the fall meeting, the October meeting before the end of the year, we will be able to make some transfers to restore those budgets so that the finance committee, finance reserve fund, will not be reduced. So we try to take care of that after 6 months. What happened this year that was different was that they had more advisories from October on that hadn't been fixed by budgets that were going to be short through no fault of their own, which they anticipated to be more than the reserve fund. So that's what the chairman meant when he said it was in deficit. It was more requests than what they actually have funding for. We did not actually get to the point where they had to pay them out, but they have very little money actually in there, and we even contemplated not paying some bills until town meeting, and we could do some of the transfers. And that's what we would do.
So at town meeting, you might decide to take more money out of stabilization to pay bills that weren't paid out of the general budget.
I think we're using transfers. At the town meeting, there was an appropriation appropriated to the schools that the schools weren't able legally to use, and we've been able to utilize that money for some of those budgets, but I doubt that that will happen again.
Thank you, Mr. State.
Chair, just
Mr. McGrath.
A quick question. On the agricultural transportation, is that a $28,000 plus?
That's a reduction. We had 4 students going to Norfolk Aggie. We have to pay their transportation. We had 1 student graduate, but then we had 3 new students come on. I was holding double the transportation until I could find out what the actual was. I found out today that what the actual is, so there is a reduction.
Just, and because I'm naive about this point, why doesn't that come out of the school department's budget? I know it's, one hand to the other, but why isn't it coming out of the school department's transportation budget?
The transportation budget is paid by the town, even the schools. It's separate, it's not within the assessment. And the way the law is written now, agriculture is paid directly by the town and not the school district. There are some legislation initiatives right now that is trying to change that so that maybe the vocational schools would pick it up, or it would at least go into the school district.
Thank you. Excuse me. Ms. Cooper?
I had a question about the treasurer's salary, the reduction in his hours. Does that make it so that the treasurer has fewer hours than the assistant treasurer?
The treasurer retired and has agreed to continue with us. And that budget we were holding to the last budget because we weren't sure if he was going to continue to stay, and we needed to keep that money in the position to be able to hire someone else. And we have cut it. So he is in reduced hours.
So the way it looks now, the treasurer and the assistant treasurer will be paid approximately the same.
His hours will be significantly less.
The treasurer?
She is full-time. The assistant is full-time.
Oh, okay.
Do you have any other questions on the budget? Ms. Cooper?
I have one about the American Legion lease. It's my understanding that they lease some building outside of the town's buildings. And I'm just wondering if there's a reason why they don't use something like Four Dresser Hill instead.
Do you want me to answer that?
If you would, please.
The
Did you tell I was
American-
looking for that?
The American Legion uses the Grange, and the Grange needed assistance from the town for heating a while back, and they were in trouble financially. The one thing that the town could do to help them, and it was the Grange that actually had come originally to ask the town for help. We cannot give monies to private entities that are not part of the town, but there is a law that allows the town to pay for space for American Legions. So what we have done is, the board and town meeting has given them $3,000 a year, and it goes towards the heat of that building in lieu of a lease for them. So if they were brought here, I'm not sure what would happen to the Grange. But certainly that can be.
Is the Grange a town building too?
It is not. It is controlled by its own entity, the community. They're their own entity.
So is there any I'm sorry.
No, please,
Mr.
go
Chair,
ahead.
is there any reason why we couldn't recommend that the American Legion not lease that building as a cost reduction for the town?
Ms. Craver, we're not required, does that law you mentioned earlier, doesn't that require us to provide space for the Legion to meet? It's not a requirement. I was under the
It
impression we
allows
were
you.
required to supply meeting place for them.
It allows you. I don't believe it's required, but I can take a look at that.
I'd like to double check that, because if I remember the discussions properly, we were required to provide a meeting place for an American Legion post. Again,
Mr. Chair?
I could be.
Also, if it was a town meeting vote in order to set it up in the beginning, will it require a town meeting vote to undo it if that was the case?
The town meeting has agreed, as you've gone forward in the budget, as long as the 3,000 has been in the budget, that's where I say town meeting has agreed. The Board of Selectmen had a discussion and created that funding. Just to go back to your question regarding Four Dresser Hill, that has been under the Cultural Activities Council auspice, and at this point, the Board of Selectmen has allowed them to continue use, and that is not guaranteed going forward.
What, I'm sorry, what's not guaranteed?
Four Dresser Hill. Yeah, I guess that's all I want to say at this point.
That was another question. Is there a lease of some sort for the vendors at Four Dresser Hill?
That has been under the auspices of the Activities Council, and we will have some more conversation about that in executive